Very good afternoon, everyone. So we'll be beginning with our next panel. The internet can connect learners to free content from the world's best teachers, but is that enough? Today we'll hear from Neeru Khosla, founder of CK12, AG Karunakaran, who is president Pratham Bay Area, and Paulette will be representing Khan Academy for us today. And our moderator for this panel is Ahmed Patel, who is a principal at Owl Ventures. So with this, I hand over to Amit.
Great. Thank you. Welcome, and thank you panelists for being on this panel, and thank you everyone for attending. Excited about the discussion that we're going to have. Just going to start off by asking each of the panelists to introduce themselves and say a little bit about the organization that you work with. I'll start with Neeru on here.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to be on this panel, Amit, and the IIT group. So, my name is Neeru Khosla, and I'm kind of privileged to be able to help in something that I'm really passionate about. I'm passionate about it because when I was young, I really was passionate about it. I loved learning. I still love learning. And then, of course, we have 4 children. Like all good Indians, we believe education is the best thing we can give our children to kind of keep moving ahead in life. That's why I keep asking myself the question, why is that we can't do that for every other child in the world? So that's why I work on what I do. CK12 is a nonprofit, and we provide science and math content for K-12. It's a little bit different than higher ed, but what we do is we created the technology as well as the content so that we start with kind of a marriage, kind of a deep integration of the content with the technology. And I think it makes it much more meaningful. We can do a lot more with that structure in place rather than just building a technology. And everything we offer is for free for anyone to use.
Thank you, Neeru. AG?
Yeah. Hi, my name is AG Karunakaran. I go by AGK. I'm the president of the Pratham Bay Area. Pratham is one of the largest not-for-profit in India dealing with educating underprivileged children. The major problem in India is that close to 98% of the children go to school. Only less than half of them can actually read their 5th grade material when they are in that grade. Sometimes they can't even read the 2nd grade material. So Dr. Madhav Chavan, who was a professor in Michigan, went back from here 22 years ago and started this organization. And now it's scaled phenomenally well to support about 7.7 million children in about 21 different states in India. And I've been involved with Pratham since 2005-06 timeframe. And the last few years I've been on the board. And this year I took the Bay Area presidency. And our idea is to, especially from this group, and we thank IIT Global Leadership the organizers to invite us over here. The idea is there's not only the US organizations for Pratham, there are 14 chapters. One of the major role is to raise money for the causes in India. But the Bay Area is something special in the sense that we are also connecting technology. Some of the people who have provided content, sometimes people provide even the development methodology to help try different initiatives. So Pratham has 4 different major programs. One is to deal with the primary education for 0 to 5th grade. Now they're trying to get to 8th grade kind of students. And then the other one is second chance. We want to bring kids who have dropped out, especially women, who can come back and do the classes again so that they can pass the basic 10th grade education. And then the third one is vocational training. And the 4th one is measurement, right? Across India, we want to make sure that there is measurement done. So annual status of education report, which is done by Pratham, it's been now that we have published it for the 10 years. It's the most sought after report right now to see how the individual states are performing, and not only now India, the 10 other countries around the world adopting that. So we really, really appreciate any involvement from the community here. Thank you.
Thank you, AGK. Paulette?
So you might have noticed from the program that the speaker was supposed to be Shantanu Sinha, president of Khan Academy. And you can probably tell I'm not Shantanu. But his wife emailed me this morning to say that he was in the emergency room. So I've worked at Khan Academy for 2 years. So I'm going to be representing Khan Academy. So many of you heard Sal yesterday. But for the few of you who did not, Khan Academy, as you know, their mission is a free world-class education for anyone, anywhere. It's this amazing online resource which has videos, it has practice problems. Many people just think of videos, but with most things in life, if you don't, you learn by doing. So it's not just videos about interesting and important topics, but there's a lot of practice, especially in maths, for instance. There's 100,000 problems. It's got tools for teachers, it's got analytics. Khan Academy has 15 million registered subscribers. They're in 190 plus countries, pretty much everyone. I don't know, I couldn't name the one that one or two we're not in. And we're in 20 plus languages. And I do want to emphasize the totally free forever, because people constantly used to come up to me and say, okay, so how much does it really cost? And it's totally free forever.
Great, thank you, Paulette, and thank you for substituting in for Shantanu. And just to give you a brief introduction about myself, my name is Ahmed Patel, and I work with Owl Ventures. We're a K-12 focused venture capital fund, so we specifically invest in student or teacher-facing tools, and we invest at the Series A and Series B stage of companies. So I think what I'd love to do is start off by taking a deeper dive into kind of each of your organizations. So Neeru, you gave us a little bit of taste saying that you provide free textbooks. Kind of what are these textbooks that you're providing? Who writes them? What subjects? Who are the students that they're serving? Can you give us a deeper dive into what CK12 is doing?
I would love to. Let me approach this a little bit differently. The impression out there is that we are a textbook company.
Okay.
Okay. When we started, in fact, we started about a year or two behind when Sal started his project. I was actually one of the first ones to find him. He actually created all the videos for our Algebra 1 book, on all the problems that are on our Algebra 1 book. So those are ours that we got Sal to do. My philosophy is this, that we don't only learn from one thing. We just don't learn from a text by reading a text. We don't learn from just watching a video. We don't learn by just doing practice. So our philosophy is that if a child needs something, especially in the K-12 world, we should provide them as many modalities. We call them modalities. Those are the ways that you can learn. Those are materials you can learn from. Initially, when we started, the fact was that K-12 around the world and in the USA did not have one-to-one computers for every child. It did not have the infrastructure that supported that one-to-one capability. We would go demonstrate to school districts, and the whole site would come kind of, crashing.
Yeah.
The labs in the schools couldn't support what we were doing. So one of the first things we did, I actually have to mention my co-founder who passed away in 2012, Morgan Pal, was we thought through this whole project in a way that we were not just going to do a technology. Vinod, my husband, and Morgan is the same. He's been funded for big three, was funded for 3 of his companies. Idea was that technology is going to solve everything. I think technology is going to solve a lot of problems, but we have to take care of the evolution of the time it takes to get to that part, to that end. Mm-hmm. So what we did is we said, I said, you guys, if you don't fund me for content, I am going to start crying. So that was magic. So we did the content and we did the technology together at the same time. I have my technology team, the leads are here. I encourage you to approach them and ask them questions. They're sitting there, can you wave to everyone? And so I encourage the technology to be built in a way that the content was kind of created around how it works. Every bit of content was contextualized. You are learning velocity.
Right, right.
What are the ways you can learn velocity? I, for one, cannot watch a complete video. If a video is not like 30 seconds, I'm lost.
Right.
Right? But if I can get to watch that 30-second video, I can then go enrich it with reading more. I can enrich it with something else. Our system can actually tell you every time you read, actually, rather than watch a video, you do much better on assessment.
Right.
Right? That's the kind of information our system, as it's gotten to its 9th year, we're an 8.5-year-old organization. Our commitment, again, like Khan Academy, is to be free forever. We don't charge for anything. We encourage K-12 in a way so that you can contextualize your learning. Kids cannot understand what is acceleration unless they know what is motion and what things move, and they can move at a speed, and then the change of speed is acceleration, and etc. There's a continuum for learning for those guys. You can take care of it many ways. As a teacher is really project-based. You can have a project-based approach that'll get the teacher to use the material in a way that a student can actually learn. They're not stopped by whatever way they want to learn. Secondly, if a student is behind, he or she is not going to be able to watch a video or flip a classroom or blended learning and all that if you don't hold their hands and making them see why this is relevant. You've got to make them create stuff. All children need to create stuff. We have creation capabilities on our platform. We have deep customization capability on our platform. You can take anything, change it to your own context.
That's fantastic.
Students can create their own projects, assignments, class assignments. So it's very deeply integrated in a way that it's customizable, because we can't customize it for 8 billion people. So we say, if you don't find anything on our website, please, here are the tools for you to start learning from. There's a lot more, the assessment in time learning. As you're doing all this, we capture all the data. We have an adaptive system. Everyone has an adaptive system right now. It doesn't work without that. You have to have an adaptive system so the student can learn in real time what's happening to their learning or not. What are they making mistakes on? And we give them relevant material. And it's not just one thing. We actually give them relevant material that'll get them deeper into learning. And part of this idea of multimodality is about immersion, right? If you give the same thing in various ways, students are immersed in it. They have to be. They have to read, they have to watch, they have to assess, they have to interact. We have interactive elements, which actually you can change the variables on physics simulations. I encourage you to see it if you're interested on our website, to go see the physics simulation and change the variables and see what happens to the, and they're all kind of based on real world examples. I could go on, there's lots more, but I do want to be giving everyone else a chance to say something, so later more.
No, of course. No, that's a great, fantastic introduction, and I think a few of the points that you touched on, so one, the fact that the textbook is adaptable, that's key, right? Like most traditional textbooks that are there, teachers buy, and then it kind of just sits on their shelf, and maybe 5 years later, maybe 10 years later, the school can actually afford an updated version of that, and for the last 5 years, it hasn't been actually touched, right? Or maybe they're just using one section of it, but they still have to pay for the entire textbook, right? So I think that is definitely.
Just one more point on that. We have about 115,000 flex books that have been customized by schools, teachers, and districts, major school districts. or even the modalities. We have like 100,000 modalities that have been created by teachers for their own context or students for their own context.
Yeah, no. And bringing it back to one of the earlier points you made, which is getting connection into the classroom, right? So I'm sure many people in the audience and you guys are familiar with the E-rate funding program that President Obama has put out there, $8 billion plus where, before this funding program was out there, very few of the schools in our country actually had a high-speed broadband internet connection, and the goal is within the next 5 to 8 years to have 90+% of schools with the high-speed broadband internet connection. And so I think once you have that, then you'll have the infrastructure there to support a lot more technology. But what I guess I'd love to get your take, because obviously Pratham's helping out in India where this infrastructure does not exist, right? And so how do we think about education technology in rural India, or where high-speed broadband internet is not going to necessarily get there within the next 5 years? And would love to take a deeper dive of how kind of Pratham thinks about it and what types of ed tech they try to bring in there.
Certainly. I mean, I think, India's lost, especially in rural India, or even where Pratham operates in the cities, urban areas, mostly in slums, the last mile is a real problem. Last mile in two ways. One is the electricity itself, and the second one is the broadband connectivity, and the third one is the type of devices. All of that is a challenge for that group of demographics that we're talking about, right? But Pratham, what it's fundamentally doing is to deal with this basic education problem. So if you're talking about somebody who's not even able to understand the basic letters, words, for example, the Asar report, if you take a look at it, you go and give this, it's just one sheet of paper that's given. The assessor goes to any village and give it to a random child, maybe somebody studying in 5th grade or 6th grade, and give a material like that. That person cannot even read the 2nd grade material, meaning they cannot form words out of letters or sentences out of words. So Pratham has developed a methodology that's how you basically become learners, right? So the way it's now we are calling it a Learn India program, but it used to be originally called Read India. What it is that you first, teach them how to read, so that they learn to read first, then they read to learn. So eventually they become learners, right? That's the model, and what it is it's an experiential learning. So somebody, in the community who has gone some basic education like 10th grade, 12th grade, or possibly, college student, they would just go, Pratham will give this material to them, and they will go to this community and pick up 10, 12 children, and they all sit around, and this material is passed around. Like it could be a bunch of little letters in cardboards. It's like how we have Scrabble or things like that, and they form, looking at a picture, they form a particular word, right? So that the material can be used. From there, words will be there, then they make sentences out of it. From sentences, they go to essays, and from, small paragraphs, and from there to essay, and from there a story. So essentially, they have now learned how to read. And so this has worked very, very well, and it has impacted over a period of, anywhere between 60 to 120 days. A child who doesn't know how to read will quickly be able to read any given content in their local language. So that is the innovation that started 22 years ago and is now phenomenally scaled. Now, to bring the technology element into it, what Pratham is experimenting is with the idea of digital content. We don't call it online content. The digital content is the better way to define Pratham's work, and we are experimenting it. And the way it is that you give an inexpensive device, maybe a feature phone as opposed to a smartphone, something like that, where the adoption of those phones is phenomenal in India these days. How can that be used in an experiential learning setup where that maybe the device gets passed around, do some gamification. So Pratham is not only developing its own content, but also curating content that's available through various partners around the world. They've even taken stuff from University of Colorado, they've taken stuff from NASA, and contextualized it for the local needs. And again, because we are serving multiple states in the country, and you have to deal with different language issues also. So the challenge is different. One, there is no last mile, or as we call it here, and the devices themselves they're so poor that they cannot afford these kind of stuff. So the Pratham is looking at it completely differently.
Got it. No, that's a tremendous challenge, and thank you for taking on that challenge. So Paulette, I guess arguably Khan Academy could be thought of as like the most ubiquitous education technology site in the world, and you serve students all around the world, from India to America to Australia, everywhere. How does Khan Academy think about prioritizing what it is that they're creating so that they meet the needs of students that do have access to the technology infrastructure versus those that don't?
Yeah. So that's a really good question, because the statistic is that 61% of the world is actually not connected. So that's really important. The online technology is sort of where things are going. But unless we want to give up on a couple of generations or more of children and people and adults today, we have to be thinking about how to bring the power of online to offline as well. And there's Pratham mentioned it. I know with CK12, you can't get all of it, but you could print some of it so you can get a lot of value. And something Khan Academy looks at also, there's an organization called the Foundation for Learning Equality, which has taken Khan Academy content, offline to make that more accessible. So, we really have to remember that it's not enough to just, have the answer for highly developed countries, and it's not just enough to have the answer for, the 10% in India. It's wonderful to give more opportunity to people who are already advantaged. That's absolutely wonderful, but fundamentally, most of us are here for the mission of helping those, who are at the starting point, whom life has not given all these advantages to, and we mustn't forget about them. So, Vinod mentioned this morning, technology is this great multiplier. So for sure, with online technology, you can get the best resources, available for free, whether it's Khan Academy, whether it's CK12, you can get them for free. So you have this wonderful multiplying effect, so that everyone in theory could have access to it. But we mustn't forget that there's this huge gap between theory and practice, and we all have to be really focused on the practice of it. How do we bridge that gap, and how do we bring opportunity to the disadvantaged today as well? So Khan Academy, to answer your specific question, we work with the Foundation for Learning Equality. They have this product, as they call it, for K Lite, where they've taken it offline, and they work then with NGOs to distribute that, with inexpensive devices. So, but this is critical. Otherwise, we're just helping, advantaging the advantaged.
Yeah, no, and I have not heard about that organization, so I'm definitely going to look into that.
Can I add to that,
Yeah.
please? I think, Khan Academy has been a real model for everyone to kind of, do good stuff. Both CK12 and Khan Academy are of the mindset that we want to help as much as we can and not leave any child behind.
Yes.
Okay. So from our perspective, we also say that, if you have access, and I know mobile is a huge thing, that mobile is accessible in India. Bangalore, that's one of the first things that happened to women. So they had access to mobile, and they were learning. I know BBC, when we were up for the Tech Awards, BBC got the first prize and I know both Khan and us didn't win the Tech Awards as the finalists, but we were laureates because, that was very essential in the third world where there wasn't all this sexy technology available. So people had the basic handheld phones, basic phones that they were using and they could afford. So one of the things that we too have a philosophy: anytime, anywhere, anyhow. Okay, these are philosophies that we all have to adhere to. We don't want to leave anyone behind. So anytime happens because it's online does that the best. Anytime, anyhow. We've integrated ourselves with every device that we can, the major devices that are out there, iOS, Android, different devices that are coming up, Microsoft, Intel, you know, across the board. But then comes this whole idea of offline. So our content is very difficult. It's not quite easy to dub in different languages very easily because there's so much of it. I would highly, highly encourage people to get involved with projects like ours because we allow customization, you know, so that, or if you're going to start doing something, you know, take Khan videos and dub them in different languages, take our content and translate that into different languages, into your own language. We get emails from all over the world. Thank you, now I have something that I can teach my students from. And not just one thing, we've contextualized it, we've packaged it in a way that you can use it and say, okay, this video belongs to very easy learning, basic learning about volume. Right. This learning is about, you know, very difficult concepts where my mind can't come up. We've actually developed a lot of interactive tools that teachers themselves can actually start creating on. They're actually very deeply integrated with the maths or the physics of things. So I would highly recommend, you know, get involved, because the more people get involved, the more, you know, we can take care of, you know, everyone across the board, whether it's Pratham or, you know, helping Pratham, Pratham can use our platform rather than developing one more. Right? So that there is one of the biggest frustration of teachers is, I've got to learn another thing.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's completely agreed. But see that again, the challenge here is that, at least from Pratham's standpoint, we are dealing with people who have, like, you know, if you go to some of these, I've been to certain villages, right, where the kids have gone to school for 5 years, but they don't know. They, you know, every year they are progressing without fundamental, the basic knowledge. So what Madhav, the founder of Pratham, says is that it's a completely different problem, right, where you have, here kids go to school, they know the basic language, whether it's English, or they understand the very, very basic concepts. So the Pratham is dealing with a much, much lower level. So unless such content is already available in your slides where, you know, it's dealing with those kind of inequality, right, where you have, you know, different age groups. So you could have a learning level, somebody who could be in the first grade, but like you said, where they may not be, you know, they may be smart and they're progressing very well. There where somebody could be in 5th grade who don't know any material at all. So the way the Pratham does it, that they group based on what their learning level is. Again, the same thing is like you have anytime, anywhere, anyhow. Pratham is also every child in school learning well. That's the whole idea. So how do we make them learners? And the tools Pratham deploys is different, and we are constantly looking for partnerships. We'll certainly look at every which way that we can. And very recently, the Nandan Nilekani has started this Ek Step initiative where they're also trying to do some sort of a mobile app with some gamification. So those kind of stuff also we are trying out. Again, you know, Pratham is a very good prototyping platform because of the reach it has got. It's got about 7.7 million children last year it served. And in so many states, and the ASSR reports goes to 600,000 villages in India. So we have a lot more feet on the street, so we're looking for constant partnership in that area. But again, it's not online. We look at it from a pure digital learning. That's
great. That's fantastic. So I'm going to ask one more question before we turn it over to Q&A from the audience. So you mentioned sexy technology. You mentioned like getting other people involved. We're here in the heart of technology. So as quick answers for this one, but how do we get Silicon Valley involved in your organization? How do they help out? What can they do?
I'm going to let one of them start because.
Sure, okay, I can start.
Yeah.
So very recently we tried. So if you take, I don't know how many of you have seen the ASSR report. Anybody in this? I see some hands raising up. So it's a ASSR report is published every year around January, and that collects data from 600,000 villages with multiple kids, right? So what we are trying to do is based on that, what kind of analytics that we can do, and trying to give very regional direction to the government of India or the respective Department of Educations in the various states and districts. So we have put together a volunteer team here in the Bay Area, which is looking at it some of the analytics techniques that we all do in our day-to-day technology jobs out here, how can we apply it to that particular data? There's a core group that has come together. That's one initiative that we've done. The other thing that the Bay Area has gotten involved with us is to, somebody talked about Code for India. So the idea is to have, when we are coming up with these digital platform, can we get some of these engineering community here, especially software developers, to help code for that initiative. So those kind of engagement, in addition to, of course, supporting the cause by, opening up your checkbooks, right? These are the three things that, because a dollar can go a long way, because, depending on how you count, the yearly budget for Pratham is about $26 million last year, and we supported so many children. And directly we intervene with about 1.2 million children, and then through the government support, the rest, 6+ million, 6.5 million children. So because of this, our ability to scale is very, very high. So every dollar that you can support, tangibly and intangibly, will be very helpful.
Great.
So, from the Khan Academy point of view, the only reason we're in 190 countries is because of the volunteer translations. And, especially for India, there are so many languages. We have a really, we have a process to support the volunteer translations and to structure it and start with the most critical, sort of basic arithmetic. We prioritize the content. So to help us, be more relevant to India, you have to translate it first before it can be used either online or offline by the less advantaged population. So, there is on the Khan Academy website, if you go, I forget what the name of the tab is, it keeps changing, but anyway, you can go in and volunteer to translate, and we would really appreciate that, because that's the gating item to our getting to all those children in India who could benefit from it.
So our project is a little bit complex. When people look at it, they think it's complex. But in essence, what we all three need is involvement in your regional education stuff. We've done, the way we created the content was with teachers. Pretty much took the process that teachers, publishers do, but we started with master teachers, edited it, and kind of made sure it was quality. Quality is number one thing on our mind when we do anything we do. So what we've gone on to do is to get people in India. Now we have high school content in India aligned to the curriculum in India. I would love for people to volunteer to just translate that in different languages, number one. And if you translate the Khan videos, we'll put those in the relevant languages. So I'm not, ashamed to do that. But what I would love, I know there are brilliant people in IITs. You're all looking for something to do. And getting into the tech world is kind of the dream right now. We believe in helping our team to grow skills. So when we started, the developers had basic coding skills. Today, we are working on real interactivity. We are working on 3D things. We are, really producing 3D elements. We are working on adaptive system that kind of predicts and kind of shows you where you can go do what you're not getting. We'd love people of caliber or who are really passionate and who can code to come to us, and we'd love to make you part of our team. So that would be another thing, and we're looking for particularly in people in India as well, because they'll start coding as a support office for us. So there's lots of needs, whatever way you can help, translation, development, come and speak to us.
Great, that's fantastic. So going to move it on to audience questions, and the most popular question, and I was kind of expecting this with 3 panelists that represent the nonprofit of ed tech and myself being the for-profit side of ed tech. So the question is, with all the nonprofits in the space, is there a lot of room for for-profits, and how do you think about for-profits? So I'll kick it off, and then I'd love to hear your take. So I certainly think that there is. And I think it's important in the way that you support the for-profits and the types of companies that you support. So what we heard a lot about here is making sure that all students have access to whatever education technology it is that you're creating. So our firm specifically backs companies that do not sell directly to teachers. We do not believe that the teacher should be taking any money out of their pocket to pay for this. So we believe very much so in a free version of the product. There is a premium version of the product if the school or the district is starting to make the purchase, because that's at an organization level. But we believe that making the education or the technology available to all students and teachers is a priority. And so we do think that there is room to create these sustainable for-profit education models. And I would love to get the rest of the panel's take.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on that because there's often the sense that, if you want to do good in the world, you have to be in a nonprofit. And I happen to have been in a nonprofit for the last couple of years. But if I look back, for the personal, angle on this, if I look back at my years in networking, which is what I did before I moved into education, at the end of the day, the internet got built, by for-profit companies, not by nonprofit companies. And the internet has been this amazing tool, for social impact as well. So we should never kid ourselves that the only way you can make a difference in the world is just with nonprofit companies. If you look at mobile, you look at the internet, I could, a huge long list. As soon as we start thinking that way, we realize how much good in the world is done. And Elizabeth Holmes brought this up this morning. I just loved what she said, that starting a business is a way to make a difference in the world. So, nonprofits and for-profits, as long as you have a focus on social impact as well, you can do an amazing amount of good.
Yeah, from a Pratham standpoint, right, the way we are trying to look at it is there are multiple programs that we have in addition to dealing with this primary education issue. The vocational training program that Pratham started is for the children who've graduated after 10th grade and they don't know where to go find jobs in India. So it's now created a program where within the 90 days, in some cases 120 days, the person has the ability to go and make 7,000 rupees to 15,000 rupees, depending on the 6 or 7 different programs that we are training. And that training mechanism, we are trying to make it self-sustaining in the sense that, they'll get a job, the cost incurred towards putting that person through that training will be recovered. So it becomes a recurring thing. So that creates a lot of entrepreneurial opportunities for those people. And we've seen that already in various districts where, especially women who have tried to have their own small micro entrepreneurship activities that are happening. But in terms of, so you're turning this not-for-profit beneficiary into a for-profit entrepreneur. That's something that has been done very well, both in the Pratham's second open school program for giving a second chance to the women, as well as for the vocational training.
I have a little bit of a different take on this. First of all, I'm really thrilled that people are saying, well, these nonprofits are doing so great, now there's nothing for us to do, right? That's a complete turnaround, and it's very refreshing. But I think more importantly, what I think is there needs to be a partnership, right? If you want, first of all, there's no money in K-12 education, so we are trying to, kind of give a platform, like Pratham is, to kind of raise the level of the kids that kind of are missing the base, to help them create that base so they can go and create value in the world. There's nothing that stops anyone, any for-profit, to come to us and say, we would love to partner with you to take this with a different angle. We can't provide all the angles. So for-profit partnering with us can actually take off at a very, very, they don't have to start right at the bottom. They can start at a much higher level and start creating value that will be, which we can't do. We can't do everything ourselves.
Yeah. So to add to this point, right, even I've heard in India there are a lot of private schools who like charge fees to enroll children, they all are now using Pratham content because they believe that they are able to make a difference with the much larger community going to government schools. So that's another, I'd say, for-profit participation, right, in terms of to leverage the content. Again, it's from a Pratham standpoint, it's a very, very large experiment that is it's tweaked year over year, and we want to continuously scale.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. I want to thank all of the panelists for being up here today, and thank you for having us. So none of you in the room now have an excuse why not to get involved in education technology. For-profit, non-profit, doesn't matter what your idea is. So I encourage you to come up and talk to the panelists if you have any more questions or would like to find out any more information. And thank you.